Okay, it's 7 o'clock, and we have before our regular meeting a couple of public hearings. So I will open the meeting on refinancing West Virginia Wesleyan College bond issue. Michael, is there any explanation?
I'll yield to John on that one. He's handling it on behalf of the college.
Basically, this is simply refinancing the loan that was done in 2008 through the city for Fleming Hall. There's no liability on the city whatsoever. You're simply a conduit issuer, and it's simply savings for cash flow.
Okay. Does anybody here appear relative to this reissuing of college bonds? For or against? Hearing none, I think we're through. So we'll close the meeting, adjourn the meeting, the public hearing on the refinancing of the bond issue.
There'll be a matter of that taken up at the next council meeting.
Yes, I understand. And so I'll call another public hearing to order. That's on ordinance number 370, regulating bath salts and related items. Call that meeting to order. Are there any persons here who wish to speak to that issue, pro or con? Hearing none, we've complied with that part of the law. We will close that public hearing, and I'll now call a regular meeting of the Buchanan City Council to order. Ask you to join me, please, in a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll respect the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to change the order of business here just a little bit this evening. The G2, ordinance number 371, which is the West Virginia Army National Guard Armory Conference Center financing. Mr. Stump's here to speak to that, and he has a long way to drive back to Charleston, so we'll move him up. John, you may proceed.
Well, thank you, sir. You have before you this evening for first reading consideration an ordinance of the city authorizing the leasing of facilities from the Building Commission relative to the Armory financing. The way that financing is structured is the actual bonds are issued by the Building Commission. They had a meeting today at 6:30. This is the financing of the city's portion of the Convention Center at the Armory. So this is the first reading on this ordinance. It will be subject to a public hearing and second reading at your next meeting, where any member of the public will have an opportunity to speak for or against the ordinance itself.
And do we need a motion to adopt?
Yes, a motion to adopt on first reading.
So moved.
Ordinance number 371. The motion made, is there a second?
Second.
And second. Is there any discussion or question? You know what we're doing?
Yep. Call for the question.
All in favor of the motion signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. John, thank you.
Bye, John.
See you in 2 weeks.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip.
Thanks.
Do we have any Wesleyan students? No, they're on break. They're on break. Well, good for them. Good for them. Department board reports. Michael?
Yes, you do have in front of you, should have just been passed out, financial summary ending February 28, 2013. Just for the record, our revenues ending in February, excuse me, were $2,375,030.24. Our expenditures were $2,170,314.53, which is a positive net difference of $204,715.71 revenues over expenditures. As always, if council or any member of council would like a full detailed report of our revenues and expenditures and a breakdown, please see me after the meeting. I'd be happy to supply that. Under new business, did have a budget meeting of the Buchanan City Council. It was held on Monday, March the 4th at 10 a.m. To discuss the proposed budget for 2013-2014 in the general fund. Before I make a recommendation for approval, if it doesn't bother anyone on council, I'd like to go through highlights, and I've condensed those highlights from the previous meeting. Under revenues, there was no significant revenue increase to report for 2013-14. Our B&O tax revenue continues to remain steady. Our hotel motel tax remains conservative because of the downward trend in natural gas operations in the area. Our overall revenue projections are $368,654 lower for 2013-14 because of several grants and projects that were finished in the 2012 and 2013 project year. Under expenditures, the budget includes an across-the-board $600 increase in compensation for all full-time department heads and employees. The budget does include a 10% increase in health insurance expenditures for our health insurance renewals. It also includes a 0.5% increase in our public employees retirement contribution back up to the 14.5, which was our original contribution prior to this current fiscal year. Our overall expenditures decreased from $221,154. Again, this is basically because of grants and numerous projects that have been completed or expected to be completed in 2012-13. A few bullet points to go over. Economic development did increase by $25,000 and our contribution to the Upshur County Development Authority to offset potential operational costs as the Upshur County Development Authority organizes and continues to eliminate and reallocate investments and debt. Under the street department, the next phase of the storm sewer will focus on jawbone completion from Kanawha to Locust Street. Paving projects will include Pocahontas Street and Fayette, from Marion to Meade, with curbs on Pocahontas Street. There will be a major capital purchase of a grinding milling machine for paving purposes in the street department. And also there will be additional funds in the amount of $20,000 to help assist the Consolidated Public Works Department in the hiring of a full-time horticulturalist. Again, our hotel motel breakdown, that we have decreased that amount from 10 to 10. We've decreased that $10,000 again because of the downward trend in our hotel motel occupancy. Most of it again related to the gas industry. Safety complex, there were direct appropriations in the amount of $135,000 to required to complete the next phase of the police station and make it functional for habitation. And our coal tax decreased from $32,000 to $18,000 because of a decline in coal production and distribution in West Virginia. I also make a note that there are no rainy day appropriations at this time for next year's budget. And at this time, you do have that budget in front of you, and would ask, upon a recommendation from the Finance Committee and the budget meeting that we had with Council on Monday, ask for and recommend approval of the city's general fund budget for fiscal year 2013-14.
Motion to approve the budget as we looked at before.
I move that we approve the budget for fiscal year 2013-14 as presented by Michael to the Finance Committee.
Second.
Further discussion?
Other than Michael did a very good job in his presentation on Monday. Excellent. Good job, Michael.
Let's try to condense it this time.
Thank you.
When will you actually get a quote from the insurance company for our health insurance?
I was told the end of this month. I'm trying to get that expedited with Bill Hamilton and working. We got it a little earlier last year. I'm hoping to get that now. I mean, if there has to be a significant change, you know what I do with revenues, we may have to go back and project a little bit of our B&O to cover that. But I'm not going to know. As soon as I know, I'll probably call a meeting with the members of the Finance Committee if there's anything that needs a drastic change. If you recall from the Finance Committee, you all charged me with taking a look at that and making some assessments to see if there's things that we needed to do to get that in line financially with our costs. So I still intend to do that. I'm just waiting on that information, and I'm trying to poke Bill to get that as soon as possible.
Any other question? All in favor, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The budget for fiscal 14 is approved. Go ahead, Michael.
Next item under new business is kind of a fun item, I guess. The Strawberry Festival donation. Last year, we did make a contribution of $1,000 to the Strawberry Festival. I'd ask that we make a recommendation that we contribute $1,000 this year to the West Virginia Strawberry Festival, which again is the same amount as was contributed by council last year.
Any comments on that? Motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Sounds like we don't need a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
There's fun items in the presentation sometimes.
That was fun, thank you.
Under old business, want to have continued discussions of what we left off with last week in regards to the Municipal Stabilization Fund, or some of us know as the Rainy Day Fund. Just a bit of history on this. Council appropriated in this current 2012-13 budget an amount of $140,000 to be transferred during this fiscal year to the Municipal Stabilization or Rainy Day Fund. If this transfer is approved by council, this will bring our current Municipal Stabilization Fund to $166,016. This is currently in a money market account with an interest rate of 0.08%. If we do move these funds over to a CD, a 12-month CD, the interest rate will be 0.4%. Of course, if you do move that to a CD, there are some restrictions for early withdrawal penalties. Based off of that, and that brought to council at the last council meeting, a couple council members have suggested maybe looking at some alternatives to do with that $140,000, possibly looking at our public indebtedness and checking to see if there would be any interest that we would save by allocating that money of $140,000 to pay off some of our higher interest rates, if you will. I've done that calculation, and you should have that in your packet. It's this item right here, one-page item. And I'll reference that at this time. Do you like the long or short of it?
I'd like to find it first.
This page right here.
Right after the budget.
You'll see several items: snowplow, 3 cruisers from 2012, 3 cruisers from 2011, 1 cruiser in 2010, a backhoe, a fire truck, and a street sweeper. All of those current debts do add up to $285,021. And you can see in the second column the interest rates that we're paying on each one of those items. And in the final column, what interest we would save if we were to pay those off early. Now, the $285,021 is nowhere near the $140,000. So there would have to be some recommendations made that would best fit the allocation of that money into paying off that debt. I also included the Brushy Fork Conference Center and the safety complex just to show you all the indebtedness that we have within general fund and the interest rates that we're paying there. But I feel for this discussion, those are not necessary. Basically, I feel we have really 3 things on the board here. We have the option that was presented to you last week of taking $140,000 and transferring that to the Municipal Stabilization or Rainy Day Fund. Again, that would be a 12-month CD at a whopping 0.4% interest. And you can see that in the far right column, what that would actually gain us off $140,000 for the public. That would be $560 over 12 months. So keeping that in mind and looking at some of the options that were presented for me to look at the last council meeting, come up with 2 viable options if we were to look at using that money, that $140,000, to pay off some of our indebtedness. And you'll see those 2 columns under combinations at the bottom. The first option would be the street sweeper's current debt is $104,000. The 3 cruisers from 2011 are $27,700, and the backhoe we owe $7,100. And you can see the subsequent interest rates in the second column, and then in the far right column you would see what that would save. The total amount for those 3 items would be $138,800, which is close to the 140 mark, and would save us in interest by paying those off early the amount of $12,177. The second option would be to pay the snowplow at $34,000, the 3 cruisers from 2012 at $56,800, the 3 cruisers from 2011 at $27,700, and the cruiser from 2010 at $5,421, and the backhoe at $7,100. You can see those interest rates in the second column. Those tally up to a current debt of $131,021, again at that $141,000 threshold, and would save us in interest overall $10,527. And looking at those two options, aside from the contribution of the $140 to the stabilization fund, basically what you're looking at, if you do the first option combination, the street sweeper, the 3 cruisers, and backhoes, you would get your most savings, if you will, in interest, and again in the amount of $12,177. If you're looking for a little bit more of your bang for your buck to pay off some more of those indebted items and also address some of the higher interest being paid on those, you would look at the second option, which is an interest saved of $10,527. Any questions?
I have a question. This first combination where we would save $12,177, would we save that this year?
That would be saved.
Or would that be saved over a period of time?
That would be saved over a period of time.
So the street sweeper, we'd have how many years left on?
I think the street sweeper we have 5 years or 6 years, I believe.
So that $10,000 would be over a
That
over
period
a
of time.
5-year period.
Correct.
And what about the 3 cruisers from 2011? We do those on a 5-year plan,
Yeah, and I believe we have a couple.
so we'd still have a couple years.
Couple years left on
So
that. And the backhoe is ready to pay off.
ready to pay off.
Correct.
So the savings would be spread over. The street sweeper would be spread over 5 years.
Essentially, yes.
The 3 cruisers would be spread over 4 years, 3 years.
3 years.
And the backhoe is,
It's ready to be
one more
paid.
payment, we're gonna pay it off anyway.
Correct. We're comfortably making those payments right now, just for the record on that. But this is the information I believe that was charged with council at the last meeting for me to provide. It certainly gives you a snapshot of where we are with our debt in general fund. Again, including some of those smaller debts and then the larger debts we have, of course, with the conference center and the public safety complex. And you can see our interest rates on those, and again, the interest that we would save over that period of time.
And the law allows us to have in our rainy day fund a maximum. What is that maximum?
Maximum is 30% of your general fund.
Last year's general fund budget.
It was roughly 3.2. I mean, the pure
So
expenditure.
somewhere in the $80,000 range. $800,000 lost to zero. I do that every now and then, but and we're currently at about 360.
We're at 360. We're at 360, 166, 60. If you want to be technical.
Less than half of what would be possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, there's another option if you wanted to take it. And, you know, my position is that when you use net present value analysis, it makes more sense to pay off interest rates of 3.9 to 6.2% if you're only getting a very, very minimal amount of interest income off what we put in a money market or CD. And of course, the CD are restricted. But the goal is that by the end of fiscal year 2014, you want to have a rainy day fund of $500,000. And you can do it several different ways. One, you can make the automatic transfer now and just continue paying your debt services or your lease payments based on higher interest rates, or you pay everything off quickly and then allocate enough money each month so by the end of 2014 you got your $500,000 in a rainy day fund or your stabilization fund. And it makes more sense financially, since we're not getting anything for our monies in a money market or a CD, to take off the higher interest rates you're saving more. You have to look at the incremental difference between the savings versus the expense.
It makes more sense to me that the interest saved over a 5-year period is going to be almost $22,000. The interest drawn over that same 5-year period is going to be about $2,600. That's a no-brainer to me. You pay off the debt you've got now, and pick up the savings putting some aside too every month or every year into that 20,
But your goal is to allocate enough money, you've got 17 months left,
yeah.
and you allocate whatever you pay off, the 285,000
Yeah.
by 17, divide it by that, and that's how much you put in each month into your rainy day fund. I mean,
But then are we banking and saving up to replace those cruisers and pieces of equipment? I mean, we talked about doing, the next time we have to do that, we're gonna buy them instead of leasing them.
But you'll still have $500,000
We
in the
still
rainy
have to,
day fund,
have to
Scott.
do that, but the idea of saving for this rainy day fund, I think we ought to stay that course, because something I learned in our council meeting, if we do have a catastrophic prepper doomsday kind of scenario, $800,000 only runs this business for 4 months. 3 months. Right now, this city can survive for a month and a half, and then the doors close with the rainy day fund that we currently have in stock. So, I mean, there's a couple different ways to look at it. What you say, Dave, makes sense about go ahead and pay it off now, and by the end of 2014, we can put that 140 back into the rainy day fund, but at the end of 2014, what additional, where are we saving up for cruisers and replacement parts and backhoes and snowplows that need to be replaced
Well,
that we would like to pay cash for?
Either option, the two options that Mike presented and my third option, none of those make any preparation for what you have to do the next 4 or 5 years as far as your polices or
Well, I guess
and so forth. So that's a indifferent, it has no impact on that analysis. But if you can save $22,000, what I'm saying essentially, you can put an extra $22,000 in your rainy day fund by paying off your stuff earlier. I mean, money has time value, and right now, if you use net present value analysis, it's a very low interest rate environment, so you can't get any income. That's one of the problems we have with our cemetery CD. We're not getting anything on a $220,000 CD where, 10 years ago, you're probably getting 8 or 9%. So municipalities and counties are suffering because of the low interest rate environment, but the reverse of that is we're borrowing $765,000 for 3.125% interest. So, there's some benefits from a low interest rate environment. But to me, the goal is getting $500,000 in the rainy day fund.
Well,
What you do it now.
Dave, I think the goal is getting 800,000 in it.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying 500,000 between now and the end of the fiscal year 2014. And if you look at it strictly from a financial standpoint, you should be paying off the debt.
Dave, I would say I'm more concerned about having the ability of building that fund, which we should have had years ago, toward an unknown future and matching the kinds of expenses and the timing of those expenses with the timing of the funds. To me, the rainy day fund is exactly that. It's not designed to pay interest on vehicles or fire trucks or backhoes or anything else. It's designed to create a fund that is capable and sitting there, not being touched, basically being ignored through all the day-to-day operations, year-to-year operations of the city until such time that there might be a severe need. And that kind of need wouldn't occur or reoccur. So I'm much more inclined to continue to pay for cruisers, for backhoes, for fire trucks, all these kinds of things as we have arranged at relatively low interest rates. I understand your net present value concept there, but net present value doesn't have near the impact at 3 and 4 and 5% that net present value has back in the old mid-70s when we were talking 16, 18, 19%.
I understand that.
So, I hear you talking, but I don't hear a rationale for matching the value in having a fund of money available tomorrow, the next day, next year, and so on, that could position Buchanan. We've already been advised that, expenses are outgrowing revenues, and that we're looking at a break-even point at some point, maybe 3 or 4, 5 years down the road. You know, this fund may be able to not contribute all its money at one time, but may be able to make the city continue operating as it has over a period of time in a relatively short period. I think it's more important to get that fund established, get it up to its maximum level as quickly as possible, so that it's there and available. We're meeting some pretty uncomfortable decisions out of Washington and every place else in terms of financing, and we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring.
I mean, my position, I theoretically agree with what you're saying, Rich, but from a practical standpoint, you're looking at a 17-month time frame, and I think you're going to save $22,000 by doing what I had suggested. And you know, if you don't want the guys to do that, that's fine. I think it ought to be done.
I think your $17,000 is a bit of smoke and mirrors.
No, 17 months.
17 months, but the 12,000 or whatever the amount is, I don't think it's as valuable as putting in that value of money into a rainy day fund now and being prepared for tomorrow.
I think if you're looking at 5 years versus 17 months, I'd agree with you. But I think with 17 months is a very small time capsule. But, you know, that's...
But you got to get there. You can't get there yesterday.
You know, when we were, some of you were here, and some of you weren't. When we were talking about hiring someone with the qualifications that Michael had, and one of our concerns was that we really didn't, as a council, know where the extra money in this city was, because it was being budgeted in expenditure items, and we didn't know. Now we know. One of the goals that we set for Michael when we employed him was we want to get that rainy day fund active, and we want to get money in it, and we want to get to the maximum that we can have in it. That was a charge we laid on him, and I think he's moving us in that direction. And I am not comfortable with not having a respectable reserve. I put it in the same kind of terms that I would put in my own checkbook. If all I had in my savings account was enough money to live for 3 months, if I didn't have money that I could get to for more than 3 months, I'd be very uncomfortable, and I think anybody else would be. And that's what we're looking at here. And I think we need to maximize, even like you said, at $800,000, we're still only 3 months, but that's the maximum amount that the legislature will allow us to have. And I, for one, believe that we should continue, we should put that 140 in the rainy day fund, and we should continue to work that rainy day fund as hard as we can while we can. Because as Rich points out, down the road, a year, 2, 3, 5, whatever it amounts to, we may not be able to, and we may be in financial difficulty. And I also agree it's not about the interest rate, it's about having the money there where we can work from. And we're paying these bills, right, Michael? We're not having trouble paying these bills.
No.
And in our, just in the form of our operation day to day. So I'm for putting the 140 into the rainy day fund now.
I agree, and it's, to me, it's the principle of the thing, it's not the interest.
Well, I respectfully disagree. I think you're both being very short-term oriented rather than long-term oriented, in that if you were postponing the rainy day fund for a long time period, I would agree with you 100%, but you're looking at a very definitive time period, and all I'm suggesting is you allocate X amount of dollars each month to get to the goal of $500,000 by the end of 2014 fiscal year. So I just think it's a waste of resources that we don't necessarily have to have, and we're not in a doomsday scenario right now. Maybe we'll be 4 or 5 years from now, but we're not facing that right this minute. So I think it's a wasted resource not to do it, and that's my opinion. So
my opinion goes right along with Dave's. For one thing, we're not paying for cruisers and interest rates out of the rainy day fund right now. I hope that the paper picks up on that, as Mr. Hammond stated, paying out of the rainy day fund. We're not doing that right now. The $140,000 is what would go into the rainy day fund. It's not the rainy day fund yet, at least till we vote on it. And I am definitely not in favor of putting it in now. I think we should pay off some of our debt right now and get rid of the interest rate. It works in some business organizations, it works in my personal thing. I've never been able to pay anything off by paying more interest and keep on paying. Your credit card takes up and pay it off in 82 years. And like I think we should pay it off conservatively that way.
And I want to say very strongly that I agree 100% with the council's goal to increase the stabilization fund.
Absolutely.
To where
Yeah.
we need to be. And I'm not disagreeing with you or Kenny or Rich. I just think there's a time element that will still do the same thing. And if you look at, rather than have $500,000 by April the 1st of this year versus $500,000 by June 30th of 2014, my suggestion is you're going to save X amount of dollars by holding it off for 15 or 16 months. And I think that's a resource that the city ought to give serious consideration to. I would suggest we table this for right now so that, we can discuss among ourselves some more about what we ought to do for that particular fund.
Well, I think we ought to keep the discussion right here, Dave.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, I like to hear from other people as to what they think.
Well, the only thing I'll offer that my hometown, Weirton, West Virginia, had maybe a year or two ago, they had one of these events happen. They were not able to deliver water to citizens for 2 or 3 days, maybe a little longer than that, because they had a number of things go all at once and didn't anticipate that happening. I mean, I think the problem is you don't know what day the catastrophic event is coming. And then that wasn't something that happened in the world, it was something that just happened to them. And they, because of that, I think they're being more mindful of being able to deal with that. And I would just encourage from an infrastructure standpoint to think about that. I do know that you could put money into the fund.
We had 2 storms this past summer that one of them gave us 15 minutes notice, and the other one gave us quite a bit of notice, but did quite a bit of damage to the area that we're still trying to recover from.
Still working on it.
I don't want to be predictor of tomorrow.
Entertain a motion to put the $140,000 into the rainy day fund immediately.
So moved.
Is there a second?
We'll second.
And seconded. All right, is there further discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor of the motion signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
I hear it 4-2. Is there objection? Motion carried. Michael?
That is a short presentation for me tonight. Again, I thank you for approving the budget for 2013-14. The next time we'll meet budget-related will be to lay the levy. That will be on April the 16th. That's a Tuesday, so we'll be advising council and probably need to have a discussion of times. We try to do that usually in the morning time, get the availability of all council to be there. That's my report for tonight, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Michael? Mitch Tacey, Fire Chief.
Good evening. I have one for Michael, just to kind of continue. Michael, what was the dollar amount you had for payoff for the fire truck?
The other amount I had was $50,000.
Okay. That's I think our appropriation for capital reserve. That may be, now, a few months ago, it was $88,000, but I just want you to remember out of that amount that the volunteer fire department is responsible for half of that, so I didn't want you to make sure that you don't have that included in there. Mess up your numbers. All right, this weekend and next weekend we have some guys who are going to Sissonville to fire school. We have 5 guys that are going this weekend, and then next weekend I think there's a total of 9 guys. We're taking some firefighter 1, firefighter 2, some rescue classes. The new vehicle I talked to you about has been ordered. We've got the I's dotted and the T's crossed. We have some new guys that have completed their training. We have 3 guys that are in the process of finishing up their firefighter 1, and some guys are finishing up their firefighter 2. We also have a college student who is a member of the volunteer fire department who, beginning next school year, is going to participate in our live-in program. We have a meeting scheduled with his parents. We meet with the parents. We want to make sure mom and dad understand what's going on too. So we're going to be doing that hopefully next weekend, either face-to-face or with a conference call. And as I told you the last time, I attended a meeting in Flatwoods in regards to our regional response truck. You know, we've had that thing in the fire station for some time, and it was turned over to the fire marshal's office, and they are no longer responsible for it. And after attending our meeting, we're not real sure who's responsible for it. Right now it has, and I say this in all seriousness, there is no one responsible for it. There is no line item budget for any type of expenditures that would occur with that truck. There's not a, if we needed to go out and buy a headlight, there is no funding available to the state to buy anything with them. We have over the past several years, you know, we've kept that truck warm and fuzzy for the state. Recently, there was some grant money that was allocated, and those of us with the regional response trucks were encouraged to apply for those grants, in which we did. We have there's several $1,000s worth of monitoring equipment on that truck, and one thing about fancy monitoring equipment is it's expensive to purchase, but it's almost as expensive to maintain with sensors. There's several thousands of dollars worth of sensors alone now that need to be replaced on that truck. There's no funding from the state to do that. They don't know what direction the program is going to go in. They've been talking, giving it to the National Guard, the state police, downsizing it, doing away with it. They're handcuffed. In fact, I think they would give these trucks away, but the money came through FEMA, through federal grant money, and now the state has them, and they just cannot give them away, so they're kind of stuck with them. So they don't know what direction they're going to go in. They recently, last week, awarded some of the grant funding for that, and our area and team was overlooked. We received no funding. I became a little irate that there were some organizations who do not have regional response teams, who do not participate in hazmat mitigation, that receive funds. So after meeting with the mayor, meeting with our officers in the fire department and some other folks from different areas, we have notified the Department of Military Affairs, because right now that's kind of where the money, that's kind of where it is. We have notified the Department of Military Affairs that we are no longer going to participate in the regional response team program, and I have requested that they come and pick their truck and trailer up as soon as possible. In meeting with the mayor, it's not fair. We're talking, you know, tight budgets. We don't have deep pockets. We're a small community, and as I told the mayor, I don't feel comfortable spending large dollar amounts of city money to put in something that belongs to another entity. We could put $10,000 in that truck and have it top notch by the end of next week, and then maybe the following Monday they decide they're going to come and take that truck out of our town and take our funding with them. I don't feel comfortable doing that. I told the mayor this. I'm not a doomsday prepper. I do believe in being prepared, but I think, and as I told the folks for the state, we're going to concentrate on our local response and doing things what we should for our area, and they can worry about the big ball of wax. And there will be another fire. The Buchanan Fire Department, you know, between now and sometime tomorrow, will respond to another emergency response call. So that's the area that we need to focus on, is doing what our fire department does. So we have told those folks that we're no longer in the program and to come and get their truck.
Very good.
I agree.
It's been very inactive, and I just, in my mind, it's a business decision. I just can't, our manpower is short. It takes a tremendous amount of manpower, so. We have enough equipment of our own. The county has enough equipment. I've met with Mr. Ferry today from the OEM office, and we actually have a bunch of their equipment stored in our building now. Their trailer got damaged, so we have some of their equipment in our building, and maybe by tomorrow, their trailer is done, so we're hoping maybe by tomorrow to get it back. And we're going to try to inventory, maybe come up with a primary response vehicle and a secondary response vehicle to to handle and be able to go and mitigate the things that may occur here, so. That's the gist of that. So that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Question for Mitch.
I have one question. A couple meetings ago, we were talking about residency requirements, and it was under discussion, et cetera, for fire and police, and expanded a little bit. Where does that stand, and what do we need to do to help you to get something in place?
I think we just need to come up with a decision. At the last fireman's civil service meeting, we kicked around several ideas. The Civil Service Board has not had another meeting. I know one of the members, his wife was very ill, and he tripped and had a pretty severe accident. So I think, Scott, the only thing we need to do is sit down. We had several recommendations last time. I think the only thing we're lacking is sitting down and saying, this is what we're going to do to get approval on it. So probably, maybe I'll ask Rich maybe to convene with maybe we can get the Civil Service Board together the next few days, Rich, and tackle that go again. That's all we need to do is pick A, B, or C.
Okay, anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Jay Hall?
I'll be brief. There's not a lot of action going on today or this month. I'm going to apologize for not being here last month, but I had a FEMA seminar in Charleston. It was rather long, and I wasn't able to make it back in time. Gateway East project, we had the bid opening February 15th. Last week at Consolidated Public Works Board, we decided to accept the low bid from Capital Tri-State of Cumberland, Maryland to supply the 43 light poles and globes for the Gateway East project. Anticipated delivery date 4 to 6 weeks from today. SHPO still has not made a decision as to when we can start or what they want to do as far as preserving the WPA stamps. I went so far as to ask the
Tell everybody what SHPO.
State Historical Preservation Office out of Charleston, West Virginia. And I even asked the project manager for the DOH if we could get notice to proceed to start on the south side of East Main Street, since there's no sidewalks, none of these WPA stamps are involved, and we could get a head start and start the project. I have not heard back from them on that option. So we're still on a holding pattern after 13 months. Moving on to the Army National Guard. In the paper, you may or may have not have noticed it, but there's been an ad for the materials that's going to be required to construct this water line. Put it out to competitive bids so we can hopefully draw from about 5 or 6 suppliers throughout the state and surrounding areas to supply us with those materials. And that bid opening is scheduled for March 27th. Hope to get started on that project in mid-April. Going to let it dry out some. Hope if the weather cooperates, allow time for us to select a contractor to supply us with those materials, and then have the first round of materials delivered. So we're hoping to start the project again mid-April. Route 20, McDonald's lane widening. They finally had their final office review on February 21st of this year, and they have scheduled a design review meeting next Thursday down in Charleston, where they're going to select 1 of 3 alternates. Each of them contain a storage lane of some type, but it's just the width of these lanes where they put sidewalks on both sides of the street. They're recommending alternate number 1, which, as I've mentioned previously, 2 7.5-foot sidewalks, 2 12-foot travel lanes, and 1 14-foot wide storage lane, where you could queue up and turn left or right out of McDonald's and not interfere with the lane of traffic, and look for that opening kind of what's between the railroad tracks and the intersection down by the courthouse. That 3 lanes. They're looking at that option. After their site visit last May, they've all agreed that there are more items that needed to be addressed than what they originally anticipated. So now the project is close to $1.5 million in cost. And due to these complexities, they've moved back from their May 28th starting date to late summer, early fall of this year, with a start date for the construction of that. I may attend that meeting next week. I've got some things that I'm trying to rearrange for Thursday to offer some input, because we definitely, if the project's going to carry over into 2014, I would like to know where we're going to be with the Strawberry Festival and some activities that happen early in the year, if they're still going to be going through some construction. Public safety complex.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
What's the timeline in regard to when they first start this project and when the completion date is?
15 to 18 months.
15 to 18 months.
Because there's some things that need to be acquired, some additional right-of-ways, again, upgrading of existing infrastructure, storm, relocating of some sewer and water lines, relocating of 6 utility poles and overhead wires, relocation of the main traffic light, you know, at the intersection of College and Route 20, you know, a lot of different things that would have to be coordinated.
And the state's bearing all the cost, or are we bearing some also?
That'll be decided Thursday. You know, they're going to bear a majority of it, if not all of it. I have not heard, you know, the final answer to that, so I didn't want to offer that up at this time, but I don't know. You know, from reading the report, it looks like they're going to bear all the costs.
And how sensitive they are to
Just a second.
Do you have a option that you prefer versus others, or are they listening to us what we would like?
Yes, I mean, they've taken into account what Sam and I pointed out as far as inadequate or undersized storm drains, you know, because we've always had some issues. Even though it's at the crest and top of a hill, so to speak, there always seems to be some backing up of the drop inlets and the storm lines in that area. The utility poles, they're going to have to, you know, it's their right of way, but they're going to take some, you know, parking lot and asphalt playgrounds, relocation of the fence on the school side. We may have to require just a little bit of right of way on the south side, on the McDonald's side of it, to put in this 53-foot wide, you know, from back of sidewalk to back of sidewalk, you know, improvements. But taking those into account, you know, I like option number 1. It's where we originally wanted to go. I just didn't think it was going to be that wide, you know, with the 14-foot wide storage lane. But, you know, that allows cars to turn it and get in.
How many other property owners will be affected by it?
2. One on the north and south side of the Victoria Street and Route 20 intersection. The red house on the north side and a beige apartment complex, I believe, Rich, on the south side.
And are they aware of it?
I do not know. You know, like I said,
The red house is.
The red house is? One of them is. But you know, I'd like to go down there to next Thursday's meeting and hear what they have to say and make sure some of Sam and I's concerns are being addressed. You know, in reviewing the report, it looks like most of them have, but I just want to make sure that, you know, I've got a little checklist that we developed and want to make sure that that's discussed.
There are really some pretty significant drainage issues in that area. This would go a long way to fixing those problems, in addition to the driving problems.
That's what we hope.
What else you got, Dave?
Public safety complex. I don't want to say we've come to a complete stop, but for all intents and purposes, we are slowing down significantly. The fire alarm again is 90% complete, and they can't button that up until you know, we get back in there and put some ceiling grids and some finishing panels and some paint stuff on the walls. Fire suppression system, same thing. They've got it all installed. It was air tested for conformity with specifications. It passed. Again, when the ceiling grids are set, they can come back in and, you know, make them flush with the bottom of the ceiling tiles. And the HVAC system is about 75%. They're working on it this week, connecting up the units, and hope to be wrapped up by the end of the month. And then Michael and I will get together with Jerry and see what's happening, you know, with the street department, and see if maybe we can get the crews back in there and do some additional work. Finally, Jerry, I know you're going to talk about this, Gateway West. That's our sister project to the west of us from CBS out to the Liggett Addition. We submitted that project to the DOH February 28th. Spoke with Rhonda and Rebecca, you know, with the program. They liked the application, thought it was very well put together. They've passed it on. They've not noticed anything that would kick it back to us. They're going to suggest it be approved, but we can't expect an announcement until December of this year or January of next year. So it's just a wait and see for that. But that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Questions for Jay?
Progressive government.
Jay, on the Gateway West, there used to be a historic marker with the old-fashioned cast historic markers near where Corporation now crosses over the Weston Road. That's no longer there, hasn't been there for a long time. I don't know whether Department of Highways has it, whether it was in an accident and no longer possible, but in all your discussions with SHPO and Department of Highways, you might want to bring that up. Well, I understand that there will be 2 new, never before set historic markers, 2 for each county in the state. They've been funded and we're in the process of deciding where and what those would be. But they're also planning to go back and put the ones in that have been removed over the years. So
I'll see what I can find out. You know, I'll talk with the district office, and I'll talk with Charleston maybe when I go down there next week to see what I can find out.
all right, I can get you the detail of what that particular sign said, but I have it with me right
Okay.
Anything else for Jay? Jay, thanks. Jerry Arnold. You gonna do one of these what he said and go down?
Works for me.
Can I go last next time?
Just to follow up on what Jay was saying about Gateway West and submitting that application before I get into board reports, I will tell you that we had our final grant inspection on the Safe Routes to School sidewalk grant that we've done, as well as the rec trail grant. And from those, I got an email saying that they were exceptionally pleased with the quality of work that our forced account labor provided with our employees. And we were very much encouraged to keep submitting applications to those funding areas. So just to follow up on that, I'm like Jay, I think we do good work with the money we get, and we'll do what we say we're going to do. Board reports. Consolidated Public Works Board met on the 28th at 4 o'clock. Laura Meadows was there as a guest, and she had requested some free parking for CVB visitors once they move on Main Street. That was approved to provide free parking for one-day metered spaces only. And I'm going to try to move through this fairly quickly, so if there's a question, just stop me. Michael's there, presented the financial report. The money market checking was 63,309.40, cemetery CD 225,538.17. Sam was there and talked about storm sewer extension along Pocahontas Street and trying to finish that up so we can get in there and do our paving after the July, kind of towards the September time frame of this year. We had under correspondence a note from a young lady in West Virginia Westland asking to paint paw prints on the streets. That was approved. We had a letter from a business owner on South Florida Street to put on-street parking back on the block between Lincoln and Madison. And that was denied for reasons it was removed before this mayor area. We had an email from a lady regarding parking along East Victoria. I believe Pam asked a question at last council meeting, and the board elected to leave things as is. There actually recommended to council that we asked Matt to actually enforce the parking on the sidewalk ordinance a little more, not only in that area, but South Florida Street as well. The sidewalk walks weren't designed to support the weight of the vehicular traffic. And again, that's a lot of what makes your curb lines disappear. It's the weight of those vehicles on. So they do significant damage to the sidewalks, not only the damage, but it also impedes pedestrian traffic and ADA folks
getting them done sidewalks, so.
Do they ticket or tow or both?
I think it's just ticket. I don't know, I'd say if it's in a, David, I'm just speaking for police, I don't know for certain, but if it's in a situation where it's blocking a driveway or completely blocking the sidewalk, they may get towed, but I think for the most part, they try to just contact the folks, get them to move it, and maybe they may issue a ticket from time to time.
And there's adequate parking by the school for to handle people that are going to be working at the both academy and intermediate.
Yes.
What about parking on city rights of way, between the green area between the streets and the sidewalk? Is that considered anything in these?
Actually, there's very few areas that are wide enough to accommodate.
Well, there's some on Barber Street.
But if you pull across the sidewalk, Ron, again, it's the same scenario.
You're not actually pulling across the sidewalk. You're pulling from the street, the curb, right onto the green area, and then you have the sidewalk. Is that a?
No, that's still a no-no.
That's a violation.
And if there is no sidewalk, can you park on the right-of-way of the city if there is no sidewalk?
In a grass area?
In a grass area? Okay.
No, still, because once again, what you get into is if you damage, and I'll use
Damage the
I'll
curb
use
or whatever.
I'll use North Florida Street as an example.
Okay.
That's an area that we constantly, and for obvious reasons, we have an overflow of parking from the high-rise there. So if you notice, we're constantly going down there and having to put gravel into areas beside of the street right away because of folks parking over in the grass.
Right.
You know, the same applies. If we do that, we're going to have to go throughout the city and either pave or gravel all the grass areas for parking.
I've had a number of complaints, particularly on North Florida, regarding that issue.
It's very difficult. I mean, we have, you know, there's several areas in town that there are some alleys that you can actually get off-street parking on. But I think that's an issue we're going to have to take up in the near future, is a lot of the on-street parking. And I think, you know, with the Gateway East project, you're going to see that come more to light.
The area I was thinking about, Rich, you probably know where it is, the corner of Ritchie and Barber Street, where there's usually a whole bunch of cars parked in there. That's the particular house that's very unpleasant. A lot of, well, it's just had a lot of problems.
Rich
there.
knows the house.
Yeah.
Been there many times.
Would that be worth the effort of trying to prevent that parking on city right-of-way through there, which it's being done? When they have 8 or 9 cars parked in there, there's always 2 or 3 of them parked on city right-of-way. Would that take care of that problem that some of the neighbors about down there, specifically Mr. Moore, have been complaining about?
Well, the difficulty there is if you're going to apply it to that particular resident, then you need to uniformly apply it everywhere. And in some cases, I had a case this week on 3rd Street where the city right-of-way is actually touching the front porch.
Yeah.
So they can't even pull into the driveway. And you know, you've got to look at it in multiple cases. You can't just take one issue.
Well, that particular one of the right-of-way touching the front porch, I can see that as an exception, but I'm one of those who don't believe in gray areas particularly. I think the law's either black or white, and you enforce it all or you enforce none of it.
I'm not saying about enforcing it or not enforcing it. I'm saying every situation is different. I can show you lots of places in town, including parking on the driveway, which would be on city right-of-way, where there's no sidewalk. They're not blocking a sidewalk, but they're parking at the end of the driveway. So you're going to ticket those too?
Well, there's no sidewalk.
It's on city property.
Things like Jerry said, this is an issue we're going to have to take a look at.
I think we should take a look at it and try to do it, but I was just trying to figure out a way to help Mr. Moore out up there with his problems.
Well, I understand what Mr. Moore's concern is, but I think that's the wrong approach.
Well, I think you just gotta use common sense but also have a level playing field. And I think we try to do that all the time, but sometimes it falls through the cracks. And Jerry's right, we do need to take up some, we heard the thing about it on the Victoria. Well, they did it there 30 years ago, but that was 30 years ago.
Well, you know, when it comes right down to it, though, I personally don't think Mr. Moore's getting a level playing field.
Yeah, I understand what you're
You know,
saying.
it's,
We
I
oughta-
think the game is tilted to the people in the opposite corner, but my opinion.
Let's get back to Jerry's report.
That was part of Jerry's report.
Bring it to the housing board.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Under your consent agenda, this item is there as well. We discussed and consolidated increasing rates, current cemetery rates for grave openings and such. That was approved and of course in your consent agenda. Under new business, we received one bid for the cemetery mowing for this year, and that was Sam's Lawn Care again. That's the one that's been doing it for the past several years. That bid was $1,325 per mowing. We have 27 mowings, so about $35,775 for the next year's mowing season. Under Waste Board, we met this evening and discussed disposal options for brush and yard debris, had a discussion on employee evaluations and compensation, and for the transfer station report, the transfer station did 1,189 transactions, 988.17 tons received, and the grand total money was $82,038.51. Recycling, we had 71.38 tons in recycling for February. Last February, we did 46.17 tons. And under street department report, we're continuing to work on South Florida street sidewalks as weather permits. Trying to catch some of those bad sections down through there. As you recall, that was part of the overall grant project for safe routes, but due to the increase in material costs, we were not able to do that under the safe routes funding. So we're continuing to work on that. Like I said, there's just some sections hitting this down through there we're trying to pick up. And of course, we'll have to go back and pick up the paver section on College Avenue. There's a couple sections up there that we have to go back and get. Trying to get that in before Jay and Michael corral us back into the public safety complex, or Jay gets approval from Chippo to go back to East Main Street. We have to clean up for the Strawberry Festival, just the normal stuff. So we're just trying to get some of that in these marginal days. We're preparing, continue to prepare our equipment for mowing, and currently we're actively seeking a parking attendant for this year. So if you know anybody that fits that bill, send them our way, please. That's all I have there, unless you have any questions for me.
Comment that Ron McCullough told me that it just occurred to him the other day that the sign for Elm Street in Victoria is gone, post and all. And he just wanted to know if we knew that.
It is probably in the assessment that's been done and land on my desk to enter into my computer, Mayor. They are we could expend $25,000 to $30,000 probably in street signs at this point from what we've got.
It's a nightmare.
Anybody else?
One quick question on College Avenue, the new sidewalks going towards the railroad tracks. How far do they go? How far will
They go down right now, Rich. They go to East Main.
Will they go beyond East Main?
There's no plan at this point to go beyond East Main.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
Rich Clemens, zoning housing.
Just a couple of items to remind residents that if you're in the city, you need building, zoning, wiring, permits, and so on. If you're in the flood zone, you need to start early because that process sometimes takes a while depending upon what you have in the way of records. I'm pleased to announce that this week we received two substantial building projects, plans. I'm not at liberty to say what they are, but one is a new business and the other is a remodel of an existing business. Total amount of dollars is about $2 million. So two significant projects of about $1 million apiece coming to the city. That speaks well for the city of Buchanan. That's all I have.
Okay. Correspondents have a letter in your packet, resignation from Morgan LaBerth, and we'll be coming together and trying to come up with a list of eligibles for the police department to replace Morgan. You have also Public Service Commission approval of the water rate increase for the city. Brings us to the consent agenda. It's minutes of regular meeting, minutes of special meeting, building and wiring permits, payment of the bills. Overland missions, a request for 5K run on March 24th. Recommendations from Consolidated Public Works Board, East Victoria Street, and increase of cemetery fees. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We'll note the increase in cemetery fees is only authorization for city attorney to draft an ordinance. Those cannot be increased without an ordinance.
Right.
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Approve this consent agenda.
Approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Second motion. Second. Motion made, a second. Is there further discussion? All in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We have ordinance number 370 for second and final reading. Absent Mr. McCauley, I'll read the caption. Ordinance number 370 of the City of Buchanan, an ordinance, one, prohibiting the sale, distribution, delivery, trading, bartering, giving away, exchanging, advertising for sale, display. Anybody could make a motion and say that you would like for me to
So moved.
Second.
dispense with the reading of the caption. Motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. You ready for the question? This is passage of ordinance number 370, regulating bath salts and related items.
I would probably like to second that motion, and
Very loudly, huh?
yes,
I think we also make the motion at the same time.
let's do that.
Pass it by acclamation. I think we better take a vote. Is there any further discussion?
Call for question.
All in favor of passing ordinance number 370 on second and final reading, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Let the record show that the chair and the mayor votes in the affirmative. I won't be left out. We had reading of 371, the Armory Conference Center financing. We'll hear more about that. We are still considering the draft ordinance regulating smoking in parks and recreational areas. We'll take that up next meeting with presence of the city attorney. I have some suggestions that I would make to him. If you all have not, if you have concerns about the changing of that ordinance in any way, please contact Dave McCauley. He's the writer. And we'll see it in its probably first reading form at our next meeting. Brings us to comments and announcements. Scott, do you have anything further?
Nothing this evening.
Ron?
Nothing.
Rich?
Nothing.
John?
Yes, next Friday, March the 15th at Stockert Youth Center at 5:30 is going to be the Our Children, Our Future program. It's a program collaborative with a lot of different groups that discuss poverty, as well as there's going to be some live demonstrations and a meal, community meal. Ron's the thing there. A community meal to learn how to cook healthy foods on a budget. And we, some of us sampled some of that food today. It was actually things I wouldn't normally eat, and it was very good. So,
Excellent.
Yeah, it was. I think it'll be a good learning thing and a nice way for us to all collaborate and talk about those issues.
And the attendees, I understand, will get a free can of beans and some spices.
That's right.
Yes.
We're good. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Pam?
I have nothing.
David?
No.
Okay. I have no further comments or announcements, therefore we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming out this evening.